And you can't eat, you can't sleep because you don't think your daughter's doing the same things and that she's suffering and you're suffering too.
Richard Davis was then and still now, 14 years later, a father paralyzed with pain.
All these feelings come back to me when things.
What's good, guys? Welcome back to Raw Reflections with Steph. I'm Steph if you're new here. Today's episode, guys, will focus on the disappearance of 15-year-old Kiplyn Davis. Now, Kiplyn disappeared on May 2nd, 1995. 30 whole years, y'all. And her family has been fighting truly hard to figure out where her remains are. Now, Kiplyn's case truly drawn me in. I don't know why. But looking at her, I seen a young lady that was just full of life. She appeared to be bubbly from what I have read about her. And I was like, we have to put her on our platform to discuss her case. Now, like I said, Kiplyn disappeared on May 2nd, 1995. She was 15 years old. And at the time of her disappearance, she was 5'3", weighing around 110 pounds, with curly hair, sandy brownish. So Kiplyn was a sophomore at Spanish Fork High School, where she actually disappeared in Spanish Fork, Utah. She had been set out to do her driver's education course, and she went on to have lunch with friends, but Kiplyn did not go to her 4th and 5th class. So all of Kiplyn's personal items were, in fact, in her locker. Her makeup, her retainer, her school books, everything had been left behind. Now, when Kiplyn did not return home around 5 p.m., her family did, in fact, report her missing.
And then the school called and said that she missed some classes. And I was like, it's kind of out of the norm, I guess. And so she missed some classes, and it kind of honestly just went from there. From there, her family and community desperately searched for Kiplyn, but they couldn't find her.
But because you know how law enforcement are, because Kiplyn is a 15-year-old, it is possible that she is a runaway. And being as though that Kiplyn had gotten to a disagreement with her parents earlier that morning, they thought maybe Kiplyn just needed time to cool off and run away from her family. But her family says this is very unlike her. She would not just disappear. Not even that. She left her personal items in her locker. She would not leave her purse, her makeup, her retainer, all of those things that she had on a daily basis. In fact, her parents was like, she's not just gonna run away, because she was so excited about her driver's ed course where she was about to get her license. Like, what teen is not excited about that? I don't care what happens with your parents. You are so excited to get your license, and be able to get a car, drive around, be semi-grown, but not the real grown. But her parents are like, nah. We do not believe that Kiplyn would just run away, especially because she had so many great things to be excited for.
A person that's very sweet, very kind to everyone. And so she's like that social butterfly. I kind of looked up to her that way, So she's a bright personality, like these flowers right here, like that's Kiplyn.
After her disappearance, there were a lot of rumors that spread about her disappearance, many of which were saying that her body was buried in a cannon, but there was no information to turn up to prove that that's where Kiplyn's body. 4 years after her disappearance, her family did, in fact, kind of come to the conclusion that Kiplyn was no longer in this world. And they got a marker created for her without her body, of course. And they were still searching for Kiplyn to find out where she is, to bring her body to its resting place. And they decided to get a marker in Spanish Fork Cemetery. This one is a big one, so I might look down when I'm saying this one because I want to make sure I have all the details. Numerous indictments were made in Kiplyn's case in 2005. Had been stated in April, Scott Brunson was charged with perjury in lying to a federal agent. In August, Gary Vaughn Black was also charged with perjury and lying to a federal agent. In September, Timmy Brent Olson was charged with 15 counts of lying to a grand jury. In October, Christopher Neil Depson was charged with perjury before a grand jury and making false statements to an FBI agent. In November, David Rucker Leifson was charged with perjury. Now, excuse me, why are all of y'all lying like this? And that breaks my heart as a mom, because I just cannot imagine my 15-year-old disappears and then you have all of these young men who may potentially know what has happened to your child, and they're sitting up there lying?
Families that's going through a situation similar to this, it's just important to not give up.
Be strong, continue to pray, continue to have people help you, get strength from other people. That's where you're going to get your strength and your courage to never give up.
Olsen, Depson, Brunson, and Leifson all went to the Spanish Fork High School, but Blackmore did not attend the school, which is, but you know how that is. You meet people outside of school. Some people are not good people. That's why we have to talk to our children about who are they hanging around. And several of these men did have past criminal activities, and Blackmore did not know Kiplyn. So Olsen, Depson, Brunson, and Leifson were all apparently a member of the high school's drama team, right? And they tried to put their alibi of being at the choir on the day that Kiplyn had disappeared, but there was no sign of them at the choir practice. Here we go. So, right? You say you're at the auditorium for choir practice, but no one had seen you. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. But that's what people do. In December of 2005, Brunson struck a deal, and he pled guilty to 6 counts of making false statements to an FBI agent and grand jury. The following January, Blackmore struck a similar plea bargain and served 13 months in prison. Olsen's perjury trial was conducted in the summer of 2006. He is presented to defense and was convicted on all charges. He was sentenced to 12.5 years in prison. This is a larger sentence than what is recommended by federal guidelines, although much shorter than what the prosecutors requested. The judge took Kiplyn's presumed murder into account as a factor in the sentencing for Olsen's. And then in September of 2007, Deepson was convicted of 4 counts of perjury at a jury trial. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. In October 2007, Leeson pled guilty to a single count of perjury and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Blackmore pled guilty to 2 or more counts of perjury in 2011 and was sentenced to 36 months of probation at the request of both the prosecution and the defense. He stated the court case had turned his life around and had gotten off drugs, gotten married, and was holding down a job. So I want to make sure I read that exactly as it was stated, so that way you guys have that information. Now, authorities believe that Kiplyn was raped and murdered, and these individuals were covering up for each other. They know what happened, and they're not trying to tell what exactly happened to Kiplyn on May 2nd, 1995. They believe that Leeson and Brunson were responsible for her death, and that the other guys were responsible for helping to cover up the crime. So I'm going to read this because I want to make sure I have it accurately. So it says, after Blackmore pled guilty to perjury, Olsen was charged with first-degree murder in connection to Kiplyn's presumed death. Deepson was charged with Kiplyn's murder in October of 2007. In May of 2009, a month before his trial was scheduled, he reached a plea agreement with prosecutors. He pled no contest to obstruction of justice, and the prosecution agreed he could no longer be charged in connection with Kiplyn's disappearance and presumed death. Deepson maintains complete innocence in Kiplyn's case and signed an affidavit saying that he was not involved in her abduction and doesn't know what happened to her. Now, in February of 2011, a month before his murder trial was supposed to begin, Olsen pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter in Kiplyn's case. He was sentenced to a term of 1 to 15 years in prison rather than the life sentence he would have gotten if he had been convicted of murder. Through his attorney, Olsen stated he witnessed another person hit Kiplyn twice in the head with a softball-sized rock. He and that person removed her body under some trees in Spanish Fort Canyon. Then that night moved it elsewhere. He didn't name his accomplice, but he did say the accomplice was one of the 3 other suspects who already pled guilty to perjury. Why you don't just say who did it? You don't just say who did it. Because poor Kiplyn's father offered several times to figure out where his baby is. And y'all couldn't even give that man the decency. So Kiplyn has never been found, although her family does believe, of course, that she is deceased. And that's what truly broke my heart as I began to read about Kiplyn's case and everything that transpired. 15 years is not a long time on earth. And I can only imagine what her family felt like. I do believe she has a sister. And, it's just truly sad, because you would think at this point, by all of the individuals who, lied to the FBI agents, that one of you would just go ahead and tell, where Kiplyn is. Not even that, who actually, in fact, unalived Kiplyn, and more details of her disappearance that day. And that's what breaks my heart, I do pray that Kiplyn is found, so that way her family can put her remains at her marker, at the cemetery, because everyone deserves a resting place. It's been 30 years, and you would think in this time frame of how long, the case has been going, that someone would have spoken up and said, you know what, hey, this is where Kiplyn is. But, we're not living in that type of world where people will speak up and say, hey, this is what it is, and this is where you can find her. But her family truly deserves that, so that way they can enjoy the rest of their lives and not have to wonder where their baby girl is. But that's the world that we live in. It's truly heartbreaking, but I'm truly sending my love and light to Kiplyn's family, especially being as though it has been 30 years. And I would hope, if it was me, I want my baby. I want to bury my baby where she's supposed to be. And it won't bring her back, but it will make that gut-wrenching feeling feel a little bit more easier. So as always, I'm sending my love and light to Kiplyn Davis's family. If you guys have any stories you want us to touch on, to discuss, let me know. I kind of like just sitting down, reading the details with you all, because it's a lot to memorize sometimes. But I'm truly sending love and light to her family, because for some reason, her case stuck out to me as I looked at her photos, and I was drawn to her case. So hopefully one day that they'll find out where Kiplyn is, because I don't understand how you can live with yourself. I don't understand that. And especially if they have children, or of course, it doesn't seem like they served many years, most likely out living their lives. Meanwhile, this family does not have their daughter. I don't understand that. But karma comes back. Whether you want to believe that or not, the way you do people in this world comes back. But that's the topic for another day, y'all. Until the next episode, I'll see you guys. And as always, like I said, sending love and light to Kiplyn Davis's family. Bye, guys.
We know what happened to her, but we just don't know exactly where she's at, Her parents still keep their porch light on for Kiplyn, waiting for her to come back home. Yeah, I know. So it's kind of nice that, to have that for my sister. Carissa hopes to use Kiplyn's story to help other families looking for answers too. Not just for her, but it's for the families that lost, children and loved ones,